You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Welcome back to our ongoing series of interviews down here at the 2024 Options Industry Conference, coming to you this year from scenic Asheville, at least from what I've seen of this room. This room is amazing. I'm sure I'll go see Asheville one of these days. But you know what? They locked me in this room, listeners, just for you folks, so you can get the content you've come to demand from us at OIC. Not only the panels, but we also catch up with a variety of people from the world of options to get their thoughts on some of the hot button issues of the day. And next up in the hot seats, plural, we got another twofer. First off, we got our old friend, Mr. Greg Stevens, now the head of the Options Experience Initiative over there at Fidelity. Greg, welcome back to the network, sir.
Good to be back, Mark. Thanks for having us.
I love that. What is the Options Experience? Tell us more. I must know more.
Well, it just encompasses a little bit of everything from mobile all the way to our desktop applications. Just trying to you make it a coordinated effort. So no matter where you're at, you can consistently get done the work that you need to.
So if you have touched options at all at Fidelity, that experience is courtesy of Greg, so you can thank him.
Yes, it is.
And also joining us for this two-parter extravaganza, he's been on once or twice over the last few years, our old buddy, the Song of Ice and Fire himself, Mr. Colin Songer, now the Director of Options, not the Experience, just Director of I want to make sure I have that clear, Colin. Is that correct?
That sounds right to me.
Again, experience does sound cool. You might want to look into putting that on the old business card as well. But gentlemen, welcome to the old studio. Glad you could join us here. Should be a fun time. But before we came down here, we did poll our audience. We said we're doing our annual dog and pony show down at OIC. What are the hot button issues you folks want us to talk about? There were two issues that really topped the list for everybody. What do you think those two issues were?
My guess is one would be events, upcoming election, earnings, everything that involves, what's going to drive the markets going forward. And after that, I don't know, maybe turn that over to Colin.
Oh, I see how it is. Okay.
He threw you under the bus.
He did.
Quite literally.
Yeah, I would say probably if I put myself in the audience shoes.
Think options centric.
Oh yeah, I knew you were going to say that. So it kind of gives it away. I'm leaning towards they were probably thinking zero TTE.
There's the man. There's the Director of Options, perhaps experience in quotes. Yes, it was overwhelming at first, almost 75%. It is still running right now, actually. I just checked it. We're at 43.8% now for the impact of zero-day options, which a lot of the exchange folks get very up in arms. They're short-dated and not. But you know what? For purposes of this conversation, they will be zero DTE. And then right behind it now, catching up, gaining steam, 37.5%. The whole debate around 24-hour stock and options trading is another hot thing for both of them. And then 12.5% now saying they want to talk about can the volume surge continue? And then only 6.3% for other, but a lot of them writing in for the Bitcoin, the options on the Bitcoin. So a lot of fun things to talk about. But we'll start with the elephant in the room. We did just celebrate, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, April 18th, the launch, the 2-year anniversary of call it whatever you want. 0-day revolution, short-dated listing, if you want to be very technical. But the launch of these 0-day contracts that I was just telling some of our previous guests, we talked about them 2 years ago here at this conference. I don't think anyone thought it would become what it has become. If you had told me 2 years ago, okay, 50% of SPX is now going to be listed and traded and expire the same day, I would have laughed you out of the room. I would have said, what have you taken before you came on the interview with me? But that's where we are today. So it's been a transformative thing in many ways. I'm curious for you, Colin, I think you and I have talked about these before. I think you've answered some of our listener questions about these over the last couple of years. Greg, I don't think you and I have chatted about this topic too much in this intervening last couple of years. So let's start there. These are still controversial products, even with our own audience. Our own audience is split very much on whether they like them or not. So where do you fall on this issue? Are you yay, these are great tools for the customers, hedging, speculation, or are they, as we sometimes jokingly refer to them on the network, are they gamma bombs? Are they lurking out there ready to go off at the most inopportune time?
Well, I would say that they're neither good nor bad. I think they filled a need, right? I mean, I'm with you. I didn't think that they would probably have as much impact, as they've had, from a volume standpoint. But there's obviously a gap, in what we were offering at that point. And, for customers to be able to take a little bit more of a directional play, or, if they were, selling spreads, as well, right? And looking for, those different opportunities. And, I think for, our clients, we've seen an uptick in the number of educational sessions, people attending, trying to get a better handle on what they are, just in general trading, But we've seen an uptick, over the last 2-3 years in, attending our sessions, trying to understand, what, it is and get a little bit more information out of them. But yeah, I think it definitely, as we've seen, with the growth, in the 0 DTE short dated options, there was a gap to be filled. There was demand, and here we are.
Colin, same question for you. You've talked about it with our pro members. I don't think we've talked about it on the actual network in a while. So first off, where do you fall on this? And then B, as Greg kind of alluded to over there, what has the impact been for you folks over there at Fidelity? Is everyone just beating down your door on the education and trading side? Are they just all about 0-day these days? Or what's that been like? What's that experience, if you say, been like over there for you?
The experience. So 0 DTEs have, I'm basically in the same boat as Greg on this one. I know I probably should be a little bit more push against them, but it's just, I kind of agree. It's more of a tool that I think people misunderstand. And I like the short dated options. I lean towards that because they've been out there more than that one particular day. I think people use them and don't understand what they are. I think that's a lot of times where they find themselves in trouble, which is why we lean heavily on the last emperor and the trading strategy desk to really lace out what kind of issues are out there and make them aware of that. I think that's really important, is just understanding what you're getting involved in. I do agree there does seem to be that volume is growing in there, and that to me is very interesting. And I think a lot of that deals with the concept. I know speaking with Pastor and all of them talking about selling out 2 week out and now selling 1 week out. It just seemed like that was getting compressed. And like I said, just kind of filled in the gaps from there. Did I think was going to pick up this fast? No. But I think people just should be aware of why you're using it. I think that's very important, and make sure to plan appropriately. I know this is my boring go-to. Head on a swivel. You should always manage your risk on every trade, especially if it's done that day. That's really important. So you should always have that exit plan.
Now, you mentioned the people's reason for using. I'm curious for that because we've heard a lot of reasons why people have embraced these. Even some professionals like the fact that they list and go away the same day, so you get to go home flat. I think we undervalue sometimes the benefit of just the peace of mind of that. So some people are clearly embracing them for that. Some people using them for near-dated hedging or speculation around earnings. What is the predominant use case you're seeing over there at Fidelity Group?
I don't know the exact use case. I haven't heard much from the client base on it. I think the majority of the time that I'm seeing it, which is going to be very anecdotal, not more widespread, which is it'd be good to get that kind of data, would be more speculative. They're playing that shorter time frame, even from the stance of a selling strategy. Just like you said, you're not in the trade for very long. You're in and then you're done. And I think that attracts them, but that also doesn't make them realize that it can move against you really fast. And that pricing model is not like when you're out 2 weeks. It's very different, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. But in case, could you use it, as a lot of focus is on Fed fund rates and things going on with that, so that you could use and tailor it to be just for that day. When the Feds do announce about the rate cuts or rate hikes that are going on, that's a big focus nowadays. It has an impact on the market movement. So I could see how people would use that as a short dated time frame just for that hedging standpoint for those events.
And I think that, it definitely has given customers more control over their investing when it comes to whether it's the Fed announcement on a Wednesday or an earnings announcement. Those typically tend to drive the markets, and we've always had short-dated options, right? That's the line that we have. They were just Fridays, but now, I think customers are using them more for the events. They're using, we were seeing, I think more spreads trading as well. Just where you're defining, what that risk is, not always open-ended. Customers are better educated, than they ever have been. All the firms I think do a really good job. OIC, does, Ed Modla and team there do a great job of, educating and bringing the information, and there's no shortage of it out there these days. There's a lot of content. If you want it, you can find it, and, our group does a great job of, providing that education as well.
The other hot button issue that everyone wants to talk about these days is also very timely. It's this whole debate that got kicked off with NYSE and SEC about should stocks trade 24 hours a day? And also for our audience, what does that mean from an options perspective? We polled our audience on this as well. Do you want stocks to trade 24 hours a day? You'd think our audience, kind of the bleeding edge of the options market, they want everything all the time. And yet, no, they were very reticent on this. Almost 70% said no. Only 30% said yes. So I'm always fascinated by our audience, but that's a conversation for another day. But they think very deeply on these issues, which we love. But I'm curious for you folks, where do you fall on this issue? Do you think maybe it's inevitable we are heading that way? And then also, from our perspective here at this conference, what does this mean for the options market going forward? If stocks do go 24/7, 24/5, whatever format that takes, what does that mean for the options market going forward? Do they just follow suit? Is there some other pilot going on? How do we embrace this?
Yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other when it comes to 24-hour trading. If it comes, most firms, us included, will probably be there, as well. If there's demand, that will, drive, a lot of the work. It's hard to see, folks, being able to manage, 24 hours a day, everything that's going on, every little bit of news, coming from around the world from here. So not only would we need to be supportive of, just the markets themselves, but we'd have to provide the right tools, the right resources, for customers to be able to, monitor. Alerts. What's going on? How do we, give the customer the better, the better tool set, to monitor something that's 24 hours a day. And with the options market, it's really the same thing. Events can go on. There's really 24-hour trading now, just a 24-hour news cycle that, then gets absorbed at 9:30 in the morning or throughout the day here, with some of the work. But yeah, if there's a healthy, 24-hour trading market, options would follow, right? You have to have the underlying, to be able to provide an efficient market. And if those things happen, then, yeah, it's definitely possible.
Colin, what I'm reading into that there then is you should prepare to never sleep again because your days of sleeping are over if it all goes 20. You and the last emperor there have some work ahead of you if it goes 24/7. But you're talking to the customers all the time over there on the trade desk. What are you hearing from them, and what are your thoughts on this whole issue? Do you think stocks should be 24/7, and then what does that mean for options going forward?
So stock and ETFs going 24/7. I think it still comes down to how much liquidity is out there, how many people really buy into that. Because I've heard that over the years that people really want that, and it seems like it never really catches any kind of momentum.
Careful what you wish for kind of thing.
Right, yeah. Right, and I think a lot of times when people are trading the overnight cycles, they tend to go to other vehicles that do already have that established. I know that even if it does happen And if people don't latch on, now you're going to have wider bid and ask, not going to get as much liquidity. And I think that could really dissuade people when they first jump in. So it's one of those things where unless it catches right away, it might not ever catch any momentum.
And we already do have something similar to a 24-hour market, with the SPX, right? And so it trades from 3 a.m. Eastern till 4:15, 8 p.m., something along those lines. I should know the exact, but there's a case study there that you could look at to see if individual securities would have that same. Probably not outside of the top 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 stocks, right? Once you get past those, that's kind of what drives volumes today as well. But there's interest in that SPX market, and so we offer it, and we have some customers trading it, but there's not as robust as trading the regular market.
It's funny how the pendulum seems to always swing around. I used to ask this every year at my OIC interviews. I used to always ask about after-hours options trading. And I stopped about 4 or 5 years ago because it seems like there was no interest in it. There was no movement in it at all, and there wasn't going to be any. So why bother continuing to beat this dead horse? And all of a sudden, it is back very much in the forefront right now. So again, everything old is new again out there. The other hot button topic that people have written in about, which is kind of interesting, I'd be curious for your thoughts on this as well. We've talked about crypto before, Colin, with some of our pro members. Obviously, the ETFs were approved in January. All of our options traders were sitting there like, okay, here we go. Here comes the options. And radio silence and continued radio silence. And what I'm hearing behind the scenes is interesting, to say the least. You folks have your antennae up, I'm sure, as well. What are you hearing over there at Fidelity about when or if we're going to see these things anytime in the near future?
Well, yeah, I think that's a regulatory question that, is still working its way through. And, we'll see what happens. We don't, have much, in the way to offer on, crypto options, at this point, whether they come, whether they don't. So we'll wait and see, and I'm sure it's going to be brought up in more than one or two panels going forward this week. Yeah,
if some of my other guests are to be believed, it's not happening anytime soon, which will not come as good news for our listeners. Speaking, going back really quickly to the 0 day, the other corollary we get asked a lot, and I'm sure you folks do as well, is, hey, I can do the SPX, I can do the Qs, I can do all that fun stuff. Where's my Apple, my Tesla, all that kind of fun stuff, my NVIDIA these days out there as well. Another kind of contentious one, we hear a lot of different push and pull behind the scenes about what exactly is gumming up the works. I'm curious for you folks, where do you stand? Do you think these are something that we really need to have to facilitate, particularly your audience, the retail audience, or do you think these are not coming anytime soon and we should maybe pump the brakes a little bit?
Do we need them? Probably not. We have weeklies. And that's a pretty targeted, mature product. Will they come? I think that there's some issues still to work out within the industry. Is that how do you manage that risk? Do you change contract terms? Is there some change to policies that could be made in order to better help and manage what's to come? If Apple, XYZ stock, come out and make an announcement on a Wednesday, and the Wednesday option expires, but it's at 4:30 Eastern. Stock moves one direction or another. Now somebody who's no longer watching because the option is going to expire worthless, all of a sudden is getting hit with an assignment or something that they weren't ready for. So we'll see what happens within the industry until there's some better clarity on how we would or potentially move this forward. I think we're pretty well positioned with what we have today, and I don't know if it's these single stock options are no idea if they're going to come or they're not or what, but I think there's a few discussions, and again this week I'm sure there'll be more.
That's what it's all about. But speaking of what we have today, another topic we've talked about a lot ever since really the onset of the pandemic has been this just almost exponential growth rate for the options volume out there. We've certainly seen it anecdotally on our network, just the explosion of new listeners pretty much every month, it seems like, post-2020. It's certainly been fascinating to watch. does seem like in March, maybe we had a little bit of one of the first downturns we've seen in quite some time. So obviously everyone's running around. What does that mean? What does that mean? But this has been a hot button issue for a while. Can this growth train continue? I'm curious, where do you guys fall on that right now? Are we starting to see maybe a little bit of plateauing out there? Is this just maybe a respite, a pause to catch our breath before the next leg up? Where are we standing? How are things shaping up at Fidelity right now from a volume perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think volumes, and we'll hear more about it, in this conference, have been pretty good, for the start of the year, for sure. A lot, it's being, driven, some of these shorter dated options, but I think just overall interest. And like you were saying, 2020, was a big, shift in, the user base. Not a big shift, but I mean, we see more participants, and we're still seeing more participants, come into the marketplace. And I think that's really where, from a volume standpoint, we're going to see the growth. I mean, existing customers will continue to trade, and if we offer different products, more products, then if they're viable, we'll see some growth. Is it additive? Is it going to take away from, other products, that we have out there? Only time will tell, and depends upon the product itself, right? But, I think that, growth, and we've got to focus on, getting, in front of customers the right education, the right process, the right tool sets. I mean, Colin and I are working on, a tool called Option Strategy Builder. And so it's for the newer investor, or even, a seasoned investor that wants to make sure that they're asking the right questions, that they're going through the right process. I'm bullish, I want to buy a call. No, I want to sell a put, and giving them the right tools and resources in order to, as, Colin says, manage not only risk, but your profits, and, start to really think about what these, outcomes are, and, getting, people engaged and, in the right way, income, directional, aware of what, what is going on, I think is, the biggest, opportunity we have. I mean, volumes, how much, more can they grow if we don't grow the user base is a big question. And your users are, asking, and, they're part of, that discussion as well. So.
Well, Colin, it sounds like that's your baby. So if you have any thoughts on, what was it, the Option Strategy Optimizer? Is that what it was?
Builder.
Option Strategy Builder. Optimizer. They both work. I'm just throwing it out there. Just workshop it. My fees are reasonable. But Colin, it sounds like that's a little bit your baby. So if you want to tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe is it available now, and what can folks get up to? What kind of mischief can they get up to in the Strategy Builder?
Yeah, so the Option Strategy Builder is trying to give you that walkthrough process, almost like hand-holding through, here's the things you should think about that builds an option strategy. Concept being, don't start with the strategy, let your decisions on these pick the strategy. And that's kind of the whole concept we're trying to build, because a lot of people get fixated on the name of the strategy instead of, I need an outlook on the underlying. How long do I want to go out? How much exposure I want to have. These are the type of things we want them to think about before they choose that strategy. And it is available right now for single leg strategies. It allows them to kind of play around, and if they like it, they can place a trade. And I think these kind of experiences are why volumes are at least plateauing, if not building up, is because you're seeing this growth in the option tools be more intuitive, more simplified, making it easier to follow, along with all the education that's readily available. Your podcast, we have the trading strategist. Now it's readily available to all these people where they can get that education when they need it, and they can build on that. And it gives them more confidence to place those trades or place that first trade. And that's where I kind of feel like that's fueling some of that option volume that we're seeing. You got a younger base that is really starting to get into it, and they got the education where it makes sense to them. And then you have the base that's already been trading it, and they're going to keep trading it because now they have more options to do it. Options have options, right? They have more expirations to work with. So,
yeah, I think the important thing is meeting the customers where they're at. How do they want to learn? How do they want to trade? Whether it's in mobile, the web, one of our desktop applications. We rolled out a new tool called Trading Dashboard, which is a web-based streaming platform that a customer can use to monitor and trade and quickly evaluate, the opportunities, whether it's equity or options or however they want to they want to trade. But meeting the customer where they're at and how they not only how they want to trade or invest, but how they want to learn. And some of that's with the social media, some of it's with our trading strategy desk. So all very important for us to to get in front of. And I think those things over time, and I mean it's a bit of a long game, right? Mr. Longo, it's a bit of a long game because if options aren't the most intuitive thing for folks, and so it takes a little bit of education and a process to come to that comfort. And Option Strategy Builder, our trading strategy desk, the other tool sets that we have, are helping build that confidence and education.
That's one thing I've always liked about what your approach is, the options experience, dare I say it, over there at Fidelity, is that it's very much education first. That, I think, is the way to approach options. It very much disturbs me when players tend to abdicate that, whether it's an exchange, whether it's a brokerage firm. I think they all have a responsibility to educate the folks out there. So I like to see that education is first and foremost. You mentioned meeting the customer and the client where they live. That makes me think of, there's another big player, does a lot of options volume in the space, I shall remain nameless, who made a comment recently that they don't do long-form education anymore because a lot of their users are coming to them from a TikTok. And so they do short-form TikTok snippets, and that is the sum total of their options education. I heard that and I winced, and I just thought, you can engage with them there, but that can't be the sum total of the experience, if you will, out there. So I'm glad to see that you got guys like Colin and The Last Emperor still out there fighting the good fight, sir. Congratulations to you.
No more 3-hour presentations. If you can get 3 minutes out of them, we're probably pretty good.
That is a little bit more challenging. Of course, you sprinkle a little 0 day in there, they might show up, or talk a little maybe Bitcoin options or any of that other kind of fun. Well, we mentioned kind of some of these new tools you have cooking over there. What else is going on? What else is coming down the pike that we can look forward to from the options experience over there at Fidelity?
Yeah, so we're in the process of just modernizing our entire platform, not only the option side, but equities as well. Mobile has a new option trade ticket and chain that they're rolling out at this point. We have a new web experience with a little bit more analysis and things. As Colin said, rather than having to go to multiple pages, we're embedding the key data points, the information that's needed, and our customers have told us they want to see together. So just trying to really drive that experience, and back to the education where if it's there, why is it there, and what is needed? And so whether it's a hover, whether it's a short form video that explains how to use the tool, we're in the process of doing that and making some really good progress, on getting that, and that is available, to folks, under Fidelity.com research and then options. I mentioned Trading Dashboard, our streaming. Our web-based streaming application, which is geared a little bit more towards monitoring what's going on today and now, and so you don't have to download it. If you're at the office, if you're on vacation, in the Caribbean, you can fire it up and take a look at it. But that's free to everyone. And then obviously we have our active trader platform that constantly looking at new ways and new opportunities to provide more content and context, for them as well. But yeah, I mean, a lot going on in the space, a lot going on within the industry. It's never been a better time to be a part of the Option Insider, and being able to come and talk with you guys. And obviously, Mark, we appreciate everything that you're doing, for this, group as well. And obviously with the questions that are being asked, they're a very knowledgeable group. So thank you.
They're a savvy bunch. We like them. But I thank you, too, for taking some time out of your day here at the conference to give our listeners an update. I'd ask you where should they go, but I think everybody knows Fidelity.com by now. So instead, I'll tell them, go check it out over there at Fidelity.com. May surprise them, a lot of your educational stuff available, not just for clients and customers. Anyone can go there and kick the tires on that stuff. So I like to see that as well. Don't barrier the education. Let the folks come in and kick the tires how they like. Right. Get the options experience, if you will, over there at Fidelity. And I'm sure we'll chat again soon, maybe hopefully before the next OIC, and we'll get an update on all these new tools and how all these new offerings are unfolding in the marketplace.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.